In 538 BC, the Persians conquered Babylon. Then the Persian king freed all of the Babylonians' captives. One people he encouraged to return home were the Judeans.
Cyrus, king of Persia, says this: Yahweh, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build him a temple in Jerusalem, in Judah. Whoever among you belongs to the full tally of his people, may his God be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem in Judah and build the temple of Yahweh, God of Israel.
But returning to a land their grandparents had left decades before was a daunting challenge. And many Jews who had made successful lives for themselves remained in Babylon. It was the adventurous and the deeply religious who were drawn to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. As soon as the exiles arrived in Jerusalem, work on the second temple began. The book of Ezra described the excitement that filled the air.
The people contributed money for the masons and carpenters, and food, drink, and oil for the men from Sidon and Tyre, who brought cedar wood from Lebanon by sea, for which Cyrus, king of Persia, had given permission. The priests in their robes stood forward with trumpets, and the Levites with cymbals, to praise Yahweh. Then all the people raised a mighty shout of praise, since the foundations of the temple had now been laid. Many of the older priests and heads of families who had seen the first temple wept. But many others shouted aloud for joy.
But the temple was the only source of joy for the returnees. The rest of their world was grim. The only Judeans the Babylonians had left behind were the poorest of the peasants. Now, their descendants were on the verge of starvation as they struggled to eke out a living from the land.
The only others living nearby were peoples who had been forcibly resettled in Israel after the northern tribes were exiled. These foreigners would do all they could to keep the returnees from gaining a foothold in Jerusalem, for they viewed them as rivals for control of the region.
But the worst burden for the returnees to bear was that their ancestral home, Jerusalem, was a wasteland.
The city of Jerusalem is still in ruins. The people who come back to live in the area of Jerusalem go and inhabit those stone buildings that were left standing from the time of the Babylonian destruction. So you have half of the city where people are living in ruined homes, and then another half of the city where nobody is living and the buildings are still standing empty. It would have been something depressing. And after a while, all hope would have gone out of the people, and people would have settled down to a life of discontent.
Soon, even the building of the temple slowed to a crawl, crippled by conflict between the returnees and the foreigners. The ruthless uprooting of groups like the Judeans, who were then resettled with peoples of entirely different ethnicity and religion, had led to turmoil throughout the Middle East. In Judea, law and order had completely broken down.